Salutations. Today let's talk about my personal near-death experience, alright? NDE. Something I've come to learn since actually coming out about this, talking about this, and talking about my experiences, whether it be extraterrestrial or interdimensional beings, is how many contactees or lifetime experiencers like myself have actually been involved in a bad car accident or some type of an accident that they've died. They've had an NDE. And places like the Edgar Mitchell, Ray Hernandez, and everybody are doing a lot of research concerning people with lifetime experiences, contact, and near-death experience. There's a definite correlation there. But anyway, what happened to me, alright, is that I was in a bad car accident. I went through 3 windows in my little Trans Am, alright, and I had sustained 4 catastrophic traumatic brain injuries, alright? One that was a frontal lobe shot, one that was in the quarter lobe, another one to the medulla oblongata, the brain stem, alright? And another one I had what's called diffusal axonal, alright? Which is like a spotting of the brain, almost shaken baby syndrome, alright? So that's kind of what I went through. I was in a coma for about 2 weeks, and it took me about a month and a half to remember who I was. On the way to the hospital, I died twice, and they did they resuscitated me, more or less, all right? So that's kind of what happened to me, and that's as close to death as I care to get. Anyway, I'll go into a little bit about what I saw during this time, even before I technically remembered who I was, all right? I saw what we will call, for lack of a better word, angels. But I think that doesn't quite describe them accurately either, all right? These beings were non-corporeal. I want to make that clear. They were non-physical, all right? They were more like these strands of light, like light corpuscles, thousands of them, all right? And around them, around that, these light that came out, they appeared to have what were these defense shields. That's kind of like Star Trek, that's what I call them, all right? The light didn't go beyond these shields, but outside of the shields, it looked a lot like when you see a mirage on the road in the middle of July or something, you see the steam coming up. There appeared to be that steam outside of their shields, all right? Now I see why some people would draw them with wings and instead of friction shields like I'm describing them, but once again, they were non-corporeal. Number 2 would be the amount of pure love consciousness I saw coming from these beings. I felt coming from these beings is unlike anything I've ever experienced before. I've experienced extraterrestrial contact, some type of interdimensional beings, deceased people, like so many of us that can have certain gifts, but nothing like these angelics that So I can see why some people would draw them actually having wings in that way. But like I said, they were non-corporeal, so there was no actual, I didn't see a body or actually wings as they often so seen them depicted. Once again, the love consciousness coming from them was so intense, all right, that a little bit more I think might have actually burned out my chakras, all right? That type of love frequency, and I figured that is definitely what we must be capable of also. I can tell somebody now I love you and I can feel it and it's true, but the deal that they were dealing with, that frequency of love, was completely different, all right? Each of them had a different color that I saw, all right? So this is part of my near-death experience that I kind of wanted to go over a little bit with you. Another thing would be I had to try to associate what I saw, all right, and what I experienced in my NDE with things like our common psychological questions like, was it the last oxygen processing in my brain, and is that why I was seeing some of these colors and some of these beings and having some of these experiences? How much of it was myself, was me and my brain responding to external stimuli, all right, and trying to take terms of that on a subconscious level, all right, make understanding of it. So that would be another part of that I had to deal with in my NDE. But I will say this also, believe that reality is real to the perceiver. I'll say it again, reality is real to the perceiver. And if my energy had not come back into my body, I would have been much more on that side of awareness and on that side of existence, all right? Let's talk a little bit about, a second part of my near-death experience. I saw deceased loved ones, all right? My uncle, and my grandmother, and a good friend of hers that always had time to talk to me when I would walk by, all right, as a child. Now, my uncle had on an odd outfit. He was conversing with me, and this was not like some type of a vision, all right? I was actually talking to him like I'm talking to this camera right now, all right? He was responding, and my grandmother was standing behind us, and she's kind of blinking like an owl, and never actually said anything. But my uncle's talking kind of strange. I finally said, why are you acting like that, and why are you dressed like that? And he had on like some odd Birkenstocks. I said, why are you wearing Birkenstocks? He looks at me and he told me I had crossed over and I couldn't remember it. But if I had another accident like the one I did have, I'd be there with them. And he pointed to my grandmother. I told him nothing was wrong, and I looked over at her and said, tell him nothing's wrong with me. And she's kind of blinking like an owl. Now my grandmother's been dead, 25 plus years, as opposed to my uncle had died and we buried him a few days before I had the accident. So that makes me think he was not as far across the abyss to where he could still communicate with me at the point that I was into it, that point of awareness. All right. Number 2, let's go over a little bit about the false light. Let's talk about the false light and go a little bit more detail about that. All right. A lot of people are discussing that right now, that there's a false light and deceivers that come at the point of death, and you might get caught in the recycling of this planet or even to a lower dimension. All right. One thing I will say concerning that is that once we get out of the body, all right, I think it's a lot like when you come out of about an 8-hour deep sleep. When you come out of that deep sleep, for just about a half minute to a minute, you're a little groggy, and then you go up and get your coffee and go along with your day or whatever. Now, when we come out of the death process, it's somewhat like that. We wake up and join with the Akashic records, the knowledge of space and time, as we start joining with the Creator. But just before that, as we're waking up and making that joining, even before I think our own angels can come for us, there are deceivers that can come, all right? And they use maybe a type of false light, so you must use your own discernment, the same discernment you have now that intensifies when you get out of the body. Use that discernment to discern the difference in the light, all right? Like, for example, I've said this before, the light, the sun, is a life-giving light, okay? As opposed to the light of the moon, the lunar light, which is a cold light, all right? That's much more where certain plants are photosynthesizing, but it's not the same life-giving light of the sun, all right? So you know the discernment between that now. And something else that I will comment on, a lot of people said, well, a lot of times these deceivers will come as your loved ones and then tell you to come into the light. Well, I can tell you this, when I experienced my loved ones when I was in this NDE process, it felt like them, okay? It didn't feel like it was someone else or a deception anyway like that. It didn't just look like them, it felt like them. So I can use my discernment of that and my knowledge that I have now, transition that to the other side of awareness, and use that during your transition. You're aware of it, power, knowledge is power, all right? So it's one way to deal with this whole false light thing I'm hearing about. And also another part of that would be the net, the scalar frequency that we hit when we incarnate here, that we kind of come through. It's like a net that kind of wipes us clean of a lot of our life memories, soul life memories, as well as a lot of our psychic abilities. It nullifies them to a certain degree, all right? So that's something else to be aware of. Even the gurus talked about a lot how we incarnated through the dark side of the moon. So that's something to keep in mind, all right? Some of the negative forces that are against us, but we've got a lot of positive also. And things we can focus on, we can change our vibration and try to join directly with the Creator, all right? I myself think I kind of hit that net a little bit because some things got fake, kind of foggy in there. And there's only so much during the weeks I was in a coma that I can actually relay to you and about the experience itself. So, as someone who studies psychology, I would call that a certain type of unconsciousness. I think some religious people towards the Bible would say that's the sleep of death. I think it's somewhat similar. And be aware that the death process itself wants our life memories, our soul life memories, okay? And from this life especially. So when the death force hits you, that's a part of what it's trying to take. So in that way, you have to practice something that's called the recapitulation of your life, bringing energy back and remembering things. We'll talk about that later. Exercises and quest for knowledge was not just to explain my experiences, but also to prepare myself for the death force when it hit me. So when I reincarnate here, wherever, I have more soul life memories, more intact than the ones I was born with this time. So that was important to me, all right, and merging directly to the Creator. Now, I found that when actually the death force hit me, I still lost consciousness for an amount of time, like I just described the sleep of death. So there's still more work to be done for all of us. And I only went so far into the death process. Right now, I care to go no further in there. I'm going to put a couple of books up, things that helped me, okay, that I was trying to learn this long before I ever died, all right? One that really helped me is the Tibetan Book of the Dead, all right? It's very good, also known as the Bardo Thodol. And the Bardo actually means the astral levels you can go to before but you're at before and after death, all right? So in that way, it describes the first many days, oh gosh, what is it, 40 days after death, the certain processes you go through. That was very good. Certain authors and people I've heard talk about their near-death experience I found interesting was Betty Eady had an interesting account, and also did Daniel Brinkley. So I'll put those books up also so that you take a look at those. But the one I really kind of promote is the Tibetan Book of the Dead. That helps me at this point right now understand how the death force impacted me a little bit. And once again, for all experiencers that have experienced the death process and extraterrestrials, there's a connection there. Life proving of that. I wish not, but it is what it is. Anyway, thank you for listening. I just wanted to address that, address the angelic factor, address some of the things that I experienced, all right? I could keep going on another 20 minutes about that another time. So God bless. Thank you for watching these videos. A lot of people are watching them. I don't get all that many likes, not that many comments. So I encourage everyone to comment, put a like on there, share them with your videos. I'd like to keep doing those as I have time. So thank you. Thank my friend PC for filming this. God bless.